All right, y'all, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a little presentation on habits and the compound effect. And this video is for when you want to make a change in your life but don't know where to start. We've all been there before. We all set goals, we all set New Year's resolutions, and we want to have better habits so we can improve ourselves as human beings and just be better. But a lot of times we fail, and a lot of times we go back to old habits. So in this video today, in this presentation, we're just going to be talking about why we fail and how we can kind of combat those challenges, and just the power of making small changes and how powerful that could be over time. So let's get right into it. All right, so first let's talk about why you fail at building habits. Like I said, we've all been there before. We really want to start something new. We really want to get in shape. We want to get in the gym. We want to eat healthy. We want to read more. We want to be more active. We want to hang out with friends. There's so many things that we could want to implement in our lives, and we just try and we fail, or we are good for like a few days, then we fall off. And most people think that the small habits don't work because we don't see the results right away. We don't see the reward right away. It's always delayed gratification, and that's the hardest part to wrap our minds around, because we're so visual. We're so visual, we're so materialistic in a way. We live in a 3D world and we want to see the results right away. We don't like having to wait, after putting in the work, after you eat well for a week and you maybe don't lose any weight, or you don't lose as much as you want. You know what I'm saying? But the truth is, small changes done consistently will lead to massive results over time. So if you look at this iceberg illusion, which I love this illusion because at the top is, the iceberg that you could literally see with your eyes. And that's just the success part. That's the part that everybody could see. That's the part that everybody sees, but what people don't see is all the hard work that it took to get to that part. People don't see the hard work, the dedication, the failure, the disappointment, like the list goes on. All the trials and tribulations that you went through to have that success is what people don't see. So when people are coming on the internet and like sharing their successes and showing off what they have, and we oftentimes don't see all that it took to get there. We don't see where they started from, or what maybe we do, but we don't see day in, day out what they're doing and how it has built up and added up over time. So now, what is the compound effect? Compound effect is the principle that small, consistent actions add up over time. As you can see in this graph here, there's power in being 1% better every day. If you take a full year and you decide to be 1% better each day, gradually over time, you'll start to see the results. By the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better than where you started. And that's just if you started at ground zero and you improved by 1% every day. And as you can see, if you also look at the graph, it's such a gradual progression. Like for a while, it doesn't even seem like the graph is moving. It doesn't even seem like the line is getting higher. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's kind of like flat for a little while, then it gradually goes up, and then eventually you see the gains. All right, y'all, now we're just gonna watch this video, super short, about stacking up small habits.
All you're trying to do is live one good day. How can you wake up today, do your best, try to find some small way to improve, some 1% improvement that you can make, live a good day, go to sleep, and try to do it again tomorrow. And as the days stack up, you'll find that those small changes, those reasonable approaches that you take on any given day, stack into something much greater.
So now that y'all heard that, let's talk about the penny doubled every day. So if I asked you, would you rather have $3 million today or a penny that doubles every day for 31 days, what would you take? Now, I feel like without thinking, most people would just say, give me the 3 million today. But the truth is, the penny will actually turn into over $10 million after 31 days. And that's just by the compound effect, by the penny doubling itself every single day. And that's just an example of how small actions may seem insignificant at first, but then they compound over time. This is an example with money, but it's the same with your habits. It compounds every single day that you improve, that you stay consistent. So now let's talk about the reverse compound effect. That just means that bad habits can add up too. So good habits compound positively, bad habits compound negatively. So if you're drinking 1 soda per day, you'll probably gain 15 pounds in a year. If you skip 1 workout, that could turn into months of not working out. Checking your phone first thing in the morning, that could lead to low productivity all day. So when trying to form a new habit or break a habit, let's talk about the habit loop. There's been plenty of studies on this. You can research yourself why it works. But basically, the habit loop consists of 3 things. It's the cue, which is the trigger, routine, action, and the reward, which is the benefit. So an example of a cue, something that will trigger your mind to think about something. So the cue example would be you're feeling tired. What do you do when you're feeling tired? That's the routine, that's the action. When you're feeling tired, you drink coffee. And what's the reward to drinking coffee? That's your energy boost, right? This can be applied to any good or bad habit. So how do you hack the habit loop? You have to make the cue obvious and you have to make the reward satisfying. If you want to break a habit, you got to make the cue invisible and the routine difficult. So if you want to work out every day, it'd probably be important for you to make sure you have your workout clothes set out the night before, the day before, or just have them somewhere that's in an obvious place. So that way when you look at the shoes, you're like, oh yeah, it's time to go work out, right? And then you go work out, and then what's the reward to working out? You feel good, right? Or you just have a sense of accomplishment. And like I said, this can be applied to anything. Trying to remember to drink water every day. But yeah, you just have to make the cues very obvious. Put them right in front of your face so that way you don't forget about it and you always remember what you're supposed to do. And then the reward to that, it's got to feel good, got to have a good reward to anything that you're doing in order for you to want to keep doing it. All right, so I love this example. This is the British cycling team's 1% rule. So if you didn't know, for 100 years, the British cycling was terrible until they started making tiny improvements, 1% at a time. Let's watch this short video to kind of see what that looked like for the British cycling team.
The story is about Team Sky, which is Great Britain's professional cycling team. Sometime in the mid-2000s, around 2010, they hired a man named Dave Brailsford. And at the time, Team Sky had a very middle-of-the-road record when it came to performance on the world stage. They had won about 1 gold medal in the last 100 years, from 1908 to 2008. They had never won a Tour de France, the premier event in cycling. And when they hired Dave Brailsford, they said, we would like to change this. We'd like to improve our performance. We'd like to reach a higher level of performance. What's your plan to help us do that? And when they hired Brailsford, he said, I have this strategy called the aggregation of marginal gains. And the way that he described it was the 1% improvement in nearly everything that you do. And so they started by looking at a lot of things you would expect a cycling team to look at. They improved their bike tires and made them slightly lighter. They put a more ergonomic seat on the bike. They had their riders wear biofeedback sensors so they could see how each person responded to the training and practice that they did each day. They had their outdoor riders wear indoor racing suits because they were lighter and more aerodynamic. But then they did a variety of things that you wouldn't expect a cycling team to do. They split tested different types of massage gels to see which one led to the best form of recovery. They taught their riders how to wash their hands to reduce the risk of infection and keep them healthy. They even figured out what kind of pillow led to the best night's sleep for each rider and then brought that on the road with them to hotels. So Brailsford said, if we can actually execute on this strategy, if we can aggregate all these small changes, these little 1% improvements, then I think we can win the Tour de France in about 5 years. He ended up being wrong. They won the Tour de France in 3 years, and then they repeated again the 4th year with a different rider. And then just last year, they won for the 3rd time in 4 years. And Brailsford's strategy really came to fruition at the Olympics in London in 2012, when they won 70% of the gold medals available. And so what I'd like to start us off with is the idea that small improvements actually can add up to a very significant change in a relatively short period of time. And this is just basic math, all right? If you get 1% better each day over 365 days, you end up 37 times better at the end of the year. If you get 1% worse, you take yourself almost all the way down to 0. Now, you might say, okay, well, 1% improvements are nice, but clearly no one is going to get 1% better every single day. So is that ever enough to accumulate to anything, considering that we're not going to be perfect all the time? And I would argue, yes. In fact, you can get 10 times better if you get 1% better 5 days a week, 46 weeks a year, so it's about 230 days in total. That gives you 6 weeks off for holidays, illness, laziness, and just generally not getting things done. But you're still 10 times better at the end of the year. And what I would like to propose is that the way to do this is not by setting better goals for ourselves or at our organizations, but by building better systems and obtaining better habits. In fact, you could say that the goal had never changed. They wanted to win a Tour de France each year. They wanted to win Olympic gold medals. It wasn't the goal that made the difference. Instead, it was their system, the way that they applied those improvements in a 1% basis day after day.
Right. So I love what they said at the end there, how it wasn't the goal that made them better, it was the systems that they put in place. Because, if you take a basketball team, for example, everyone's going to have the same goal, which is to win or win championships, win whatever it is that they're trying to win, whatever accolade. Everyone's going to have the same goal, but what's the difference between the teams that set the goal and actually make the goal versus the teams that set the goal and fail? It's really what's implemented, how they actually go about getting to that goal. All right, so now let's talk about the 2-minute rule, which is just a small key to starting habits. This is good for anybody trying something brand new and they want to get into the habit of doing something. And it's really a good way to just kind of have grace for yourself, or grace with yourself, and just make it super easy for you, so that way you just can't say no to doing your little habit. So for example, if you want to start reading, just read one page. You want to start running, just put your shoes on, and then you kind of progress and build from there. You start to build some momentum, you start to build some confidence, and eventually you'll just kind of keep getting better at the habit. And so it'll make you kind of like continue to do it day by day. So let's watch a short video on that.
There is no habit that we're going to work on that takes less than 2 minutes to do. But nearly any habit can be started in under 2 minutes. So if you take exercise, for example, often people will get home from a long day of work and they say, I'm too exhausted to go for a run or to try to exercise. So I never get around to doing it because I think about, I have to run 5 kilometers or whatever, some long distance that seems overwhelming to me. So rather than focus on the whole thing that you need to do, I would encourage you to focus on just the first 2 minutes. So what's the first 2 minutes of that habit? I put my running shoes on, I get out the door, and I lock the door. And if you do just that, it doesn't matter if you take another step. But what you find is that motivation often comes after starting, not before. We often think that motivation is something that we're supposed to have before we do work. But motivation will come as a result of doing some small bit of work, and then we can trust that the rest of the process will flow easily. But the point here is that the motivation needed to complete a habit is at its peak at the beginning of a behavior. The greatest amount of friction for any type of task is in the beginning, is in the starting. So the key idea is make it so easy that you can't say no.
Right, so motivation is very fleeting. We don't always feel motivated, and that's why discipline and consistency comes into play. And it's great with this 2-minute rule because the hardest part is just starting, because like they said in the video, if you put on your shoes and step outside, it's most likely you're just going to be like, well, I'm already out here, so I might as well just run a little bit, and that's kind of how it starts. But so even if you didn't have the motivation in the beginning, the motivation kind of will come as you start to do the habit. All right, so now let's talk about the power of your environment, because your environment is key to shaping your habits. If you want to eat healthier, make sure you have food out on the counter that's healthy, or in your fridge that's healthy, that you can actually see. If you want to spend less time on your phone, put your phone away, put your phone in another room so that way it's not in your sight. And it's just easier to make good choices when your environment supports them. If you want to be more productive, maybe clear off your office space, your office area, wherever you like to do your work. So it's little things like that that can really make a difference in trying out any new habit. Just really try to take care of your environment and just prime yourself to really implementing whatever it is that you want to do. A challenge for you all would be just to pick one habit and start today. Like was said earlier in the video, when you're starting out with the habit, it doesn't mean you have to go full force on day one. A lot of times that doesn't work out. You can go full force on day one, but then odds are tomorrow you won't feel like doing it again, you know? So start super small. Just take that 2-minute rule and run with it. All it takes is for you to start, you know? Want to work out, put on your workout shoes and start there. You know, if you don't get out the door, if you don't actually do a full workout, that's okay. Like, give yourself some grace, because the next day you'll progress, but you have to keep doing it every single day. And then just stay consistent. Consistency is like the most important thing when you want to start any new habit, for it to just kind of be ingrained in your mind, ingrained in your routine. You also have to reward yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to enjoy the habit that you're doing if you don't have a reward afterwards. I'm not saying do something to counteract your habit, but just make sure you have like some type of reward in mind, so that way you can at least have fun while you're doing it. Thank you for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted with any new videos, and let me know what kind of content y'all want to see. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can see when I post again. That's it. Subscribe, shout it.